Welcome to the Scale Smart podcast. I'm your host, Jacob, the founder and CEO of NetScale Growth. Today, I'm here with Alain Denzler, the founder of getitAI. Alain, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, good to meet you, Jacob. Great to be here.
I'm excited for what we've got to discuss. So, Alain, kick us off. Who is Alain and what did Get It do?
Hey, I'm just this dude from Switzerland, traveling the world and building cool stuff. I have a world-class team behind me that together we're building getitAI. I've had a kind of a path that went from I was born in Brazil, grew up in the US, and then came over to Switzerland only to like do some studies and then take off again from here. I was like traveling the world over, lots of emerging markets exposure on the side of a pharma company called Merck. Then afterwards switched over to co-founding Pitcher. And within Pitcher afterwards, we scaled, we call ourselves a micro multinational. We scaled to quite a huge team and we're deploying to S&P 500 companies around the world. We exited in 22 and have then afterwards started building Get It. And the Get It, the difference between what we did before at Pitcher was like enabling humans to sell better. Now we're like, hey, now there's AI agents that can do similar things to what humans do. We're going to make those guys sell better. So the vision we have at Get It is to be selling better than humans because of their, agents have perfect recall, infinite memory, and a lot of the things that were like impossible before have now become possible. That's what I like to think about in AI. I quote our angel Raj Verma, that's the CEO of Single Store. He says, "What used to be impossible became possible. The hard things became easy, and the easy things you can now automate." Right, and that's how we go about it as well. I Get It.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And I think agentic AI and AI agents are becoming a thing now as well. I have a client who has an agentic AI company. It just seems like not every day, but like every month, there's something new to do with AI coming out. So like, what would you say you guys are doing at Get It to make sure you're constantly adapting to these emerging technologies which are coming out and making sure you don't get left behind?
I'll use another quote there, this time from Sam Altman that probably more people know. He once said that, like, if you're one of those AI startups that's afraid of the next model launch, you're probably not the right one to invest into. So they're going to steamroll you, basically. But if you're the one that's looking forward to the next thing, then that's a good sign. Like, we are super happy that there's something like deep research that came out. We have a product that's been in the works. We're using O1 reasoning now, but the deep research one is even better, right? So it's not API access yet to that one, but these kind of launches, and also like, for example, the thing that OpenAI just launched the other day was the voice instruction API part. Super. Like, it really makes this whole emotive kind of like understanding of the agent way better. And so that as well, for us, it's a blessing. So we really look forward. We look forward to actually this thing accelerating further. Even though I don't think it can get much faster than it was, I do perceive that there's a certain plateau on the LLM side. The agent kind of agentic flows and stuff is making up for some of that. People last year were thinking that, I mean, probably right? They were thinking that LLMs are just going to keep on scaling. Then there were certain like articles that came out, like probably there's a limit to scaling as fast as they did. And then the R1 disruption this year with DeepSeek coming in, kind of questioning the whole like economics that were kind of being perceived. And now agents are stepping in. A lot of the kind of progress now you see, I think as well in Claude 3.7, a lot of agentic kind of behavior already built into the LLM, deep research as well, agentic behavior in the LLM. So yeah, there's a lot more to come, but I do think that the pace that we've seen in the last 2 years is probably not going to be as exponential as we used to have it. There's a lot of startups there, like in the dot-com boom. There's a lot of startups now at the starting lines, lots of people kicked off. And there's going to be an eventual kind of seeding out or weeding out that you're going to see. And there's going to be bigger and bigger players in the space. And it'll be more disruptive technologies that they bring out, but a lot less competition, I think, on the ground floor.
And on the topic of the podcast now, regarding the challenges, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges you have had with getitAI, and how have you got around them?
So one challenge we had, so we were probably the earliest adopters of agentic video, right? And we've worked together. We started out with DID, which is like one of the older players in the space. It didn't turn out as good as we thought. Clean API, but the product, the video model they have is not what we had expected. So we then switched on early to HeyGen, And at the same time, last year it was really bleeding edge, and bleeding edge has it in its name. It really hurt a bit, and they know that it's not a secret, but it was very early last year. So then we had some of those teething issues together with them. We were working very closely to get to a point where also latency was not an issue. Because if you think about it, like LLMs already are quite slow, or where they got faster, but the more they think, the slower they get. But then if you also have to kind of generate video on the fly, that adds more lag, right? And if in our scenario where you're selling, it's not like an HR case where you're looking for a job where you're like, hey, I don't care how long this like AI recruiter takes to respond to me. I have to stick around, right? If you're buying something and the salesperson isn't fast, you're probably going to bounce. We had a lot of issue around latency. It was like Q3, end of Q3, coming out of summer, and that was a bit of a setback also on the customer side, because perceived latency for them was key in terms of adaptation. So we kind of like spent 2 or 3 months. The team went full in, focusing on that metric, and it was astonishing. We went from like 2 or 3 seconds of latency down to like 20 milliseconds. So almost no more latency around there, which is gorgeous. I mean, it's great.
And as AI continues to evolve rapidly, like what are some of the overlooked risks and roadblocks should companies be prepared for in 2025?
I'm not sure generally for AI. I mean, I think one of the things that are interesting is that it's not. I would say it's no longer the age of AI. It's turning into the age of reasoning. I think the main capability that's out there with the LLMs that we have, it's not generating a text. It's not generating some audio or so. It's actually the ability of reasoning. You know what in Latin is called, the cogito ergo sum. I think it's called I question, therefore I think, and I think, therefore I am. It just gets shortened down, right? But I question that part. This kind of the reasoning part is what kind of makes us human. And if we can now get the reasoning engine in the LLMs to spin up and do some thinking that's beyond just generating text, it's quite fascinating. So, like, I'm not sure how many of the listeners here have used a deep research. That was quite a big eye opener for me. And I combine deep research together with O1 Pro. So there's the O1 version that's in the Teams plan, but I now even went to the Pro version where you have the O1 Pro. And it reasons for me an average 4 to 5 minutes around every task that I give it. And the quality, it's just like it's a quantum leap to what you are used to with the regular ChatGPT or Claude that you've been using personally, right? And that's something as a company, if you're like just gearing up for the Gen AI revolution and you haven't moved as fast maybe or so, you just right now you're like, hey, cool, we have this like ChatGPT style widget or whatever within our page or within our company or intranet or something like that. And then this comes, it's like quite a big change to that again. And so I have my partner works at Cisco, and there's wait, can we cut some things from the thing? Are you gonna cut it down? Okay, let's leave out the partner part there. I'm still in a divorce settlement there. I don't want to have that on record.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just say, okay, a friend of mine actually has adopted this internal GPT. It's done by OpenAI, and it's quite a smart thing to have, but it's super outdated already. You see that, So as a company, if you're adopting to GenAI and you just now have all these closed solutions you adopt internally, I think you're going to be like just always behind. And people are like, as consumers, they see the newest stuff on ChatGPT, which is really like quite astonishing how fast they are bringing out products. And on the company side, you'll always have these like older versions of it. And so you kind of fall into the same fallacy again as they always had with enterprise software. That's something interesting that I saw. And also like I've been going and witnessing, for example, on you.com. They initially wanted to be like the search engine going up against Google and all that. And then like within a year, Richard, their CEO and founder, he pivoted basically internally to, I saw him up in Davos. He pivoted to being enterprise software, doing exactly what I just said, basically creating agents within an enterprise that can then go and research stuff. And so the demand side is being untouched again from Google. Google's like very dominant there. Hard to go up against. The only person I'm seeing going up against Google really is Perplexity. And I wonder if they're going to make it or not, like, because it's a big behemoth to go after it.
100%. And You mentioned about like deep research, and I've been having a little bit of dabble into deep research, and I think some of the things that it comes out with is astronomical. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of different kind of deep research. I know Perplexity was quite a big tool in terms of like market research, but now you've got deep research on ChatGPT. I just see OpenAI and ChatGPT just being the top of the barrel. I think with all of these new things it's coming up with, all these different features it has, just cannot see anyone topping it in terms of like a general AI kind of software. And what do you think they've got coming next? Where can you see AI going in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I think that question is an easy one to answer because I think there is no one answer to it. That's the easy part. Because they're now what, $150 billion company. They're no longer a startup, but they're still acting very fast. But they're not going in one direction anymore. They now have their like family of reasoning models, where like 101 was the first, and O3, and then O3 Mini. So O3 Mini launched first, but you're going to see O3 obviously then coming up soon. And there's still the GPT version of it, which is the GPT 4.5 that they launched now. And then they have the Sora, which is the video model. And they have then probably the audio model that's going to get better still. They have the text to speech with it. Yeah, I remember about the whisper. I think it's the recognition of the voice. Anyway, they have a lot of things going on. So there's no longer one ChatGPT. Their deep research came out, right? So I think they're going to continue just to be broader. Oh, sorry, the most recent one that they did is like they went vertical in the stack. They said, hey, here's our orchestration layer for agents, or agent orchestration, which are now kind of up against Crew AI and these kind of players there. And they're I'm not going to go into detail on that, but that's of course vertical integration is another direction they could go. But I mean, for me, what I'm seeing generally, I wrote a post about that just recently. I think that the app layer is the stickiest one of them all. I think that's where a lot of the value will be generated. That's differentiating versus others. The model players, there's going to be an oligopoly. I mean, there's still going to be a lot of good money being made there, but on just a few players. There's not going to be a lot of them left there. There's like the whole scaling laws that are involved and the compute power you put behind them. And then like the deep seeks of the world can go and somehow like dilute those models and make a version of it that's quite efficient and all that, but they're always going to be followers. They don't have this kind of like customer depth that OpenAI has built in a short amount of time. So that brand is going to stick around for a while. But to the point, the app layer is the one that's stickiest, and that is the one that I don't see the big players like OpenAI and Google and Amazon and all that moving into. They want to stay infra, and as long as they do infra well, it's empowering companies like ours that then have this deep understanding of problems that the industries face, and we are then able to solve those problems. And I think that's where it becomes interesting for the everyday user, the everyday consumer, and the everyday person at work, is when those companies like ours start really solving the problems in a genuine new way. That's going to be very interesting. And I think we've not seen as much of that as we would think, because a lot of action has been in that base layer. And ChatGPT is just one app that they have, right? Or Claude, that's the one app that they have, but it's not the vast majority of use cases that we do in everyday life. What I do see though is like, I don't Google anymore. I almost never Google search anything. Google Maps, maybe that's still left there, but Google itself, that's just out.
And in the next 12 months, what are some of the goals that you've got for Get It? What are you hoping to do?
Yeah, so we're working on something really cool right now. Internally, we're just calling it the experience builder. Experience generator. We're not quite sure what we're going to market it as, but it's basically like an unlock for the whole conversational AI space, because we can now generate conversations that are guiding people to a certain objective. We can generate those on the fly based on natural language, which so far used to take an agency or a so-called conversation designer. And to do this now, like as a generative process, it unlocks so much, because so far either you were a large enterprise or mid-market, at least enterprise, and had a budget to make this a project, or no, sorry, no. So that's not an either or. It was only limited to large companies or mid-market companies that had the budget to make such a project work. And the effect that it has, that's where the effect it had was, first of all, not everybody could actually have access to it. Obviously, the small players, creators even, didn't have access to that. And even the big ones that did have access to it, they only made one version. And once it was done, it's like, don't touch anymore. That's it. It's going to work like this for the next 10 years. And so now that we can generate this on the fly and also then tweak it on the fly, we will generate hundreds of such conversations. And we will like start using like an RL agent, so this like reinforcement learning agent, to anticipate other conversations, like you saw with AlphaGo, where the computer all of a sudden starts doing moves that the grandmasters of Go looked at first and thought it's a mistake, and only afterwards realized how beautiful that was because they had never thought of that kind of a move. And we see early signs as well in this kind of like deploying these RL agents that do similar things, that they understand the game, they start to kind of like think of scenarios of how else this could have played out. And then when they apply that, then you're like, wow, this is actually quite a good way to do it. Now, there's one example that was done for customer service where they would go through all these different types of flows and then test them. And they discovered that if you early on kind of ask a question back, the people, then the rest of it stays exactly the same. But if you ask just that one question, people feel heard more, and they stay engaged longer, and you can resolve more tickets automatically like that. Very simple, but it was done not by human observation. It was done by this kind of like RL agents that played through these scenarios. And that was one of those visions that I had very early on. I just basically said, if we're building conversational flows, we want to have like a team that huddles together after every conversation, a team of AI agents that huddles together after every conversation says, hey, what could you have done better in this specific conversation? And what might have led to the main conversion event of like buying something, right? And there we can use this asynchronous time we have to just go through and reason and try to come up with other ideas. And now with our product that we're going to launch now in April, that's going to be a huge unlock. And that's going to be basically determining a lot of our roadmap in the next 12 months is around that topic that I just said. So we're also going into a seed raise in April. So we're going to open the gates. We're going to make a big launch of this new experience generator and go into a seed raise, get the funding needed to go, because this is going to need some compute as well. It needs a good team. We need a good go-to-market team as well, of course, but it needs some good compute to go and start having this like reinforcement learning and conversational AI. That's going to be quite new.
Amazing. And if people wanted to reach out, Alan, find out a little bit more, or just inquire, where's the best place for them to do that?
And we're just relaunching our website. I'll be there. My AI twin is represented on our website, and so you can go to getitAI. So that's one place, or just email me, alan@getit.ai. That's ALAIN. There's a silent I in there for the non-French speakers.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I do appreciate you coming on and sharing
Pleasure.
your expertise. Thank you again, Alan. If you enjoyed the podcast with Alan, make sure to leave it a like and a share. Thank you again, Alan, for coming on the podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Love it. Thanks, Jacob. See ya. Bye.